Tim Hughes here, the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. And today I've got with me Sean Adelberg. And Sean and I are going to talk about restreaming and streaming in 2022. Sean is restreaming and streaming all the way from Vancouver Island. So, Sean, where can people find you apart from on Vancouver Island?
Well, thanks so much, Tim. The best place to find me is just at Sean Adelberg, SeanAdelberg. If you search me on social media, you'll find me. You'll also find me under intelblaze.com as well.
Fantastic. So give us a little bit about your story, your journey in terms of, how you suddenly got into the live streaming and how how you've got on in social media and arrived at this point.
Yeah, so right back when Twitter started, back in 2007, actually, is when I first got interested in social media. And in 2008 is when I started my brand, socialmediashawn.com. And that was my first foray into social media. And it wasn't long, Twitter was really popular and Facebook and all these platforms and YouTube, but we started seeing pretty early on that shift towards live and live streaming. And so that was kind of my cue that was going to be the next level in the evolution of social media. So back then, we had a lot of different platforms through the year. Excuse me.
So, I say to people, do you remember Blab? And a lot of people go,
I was going to say Blab, yep.
And nobody remembers it. Because I remember when you couldn't move for Blab this and Blab that and Blab influencers and...
Yeah, Blab was big back then. And, it's interesting with live streaming because, they come and go so quickly sometimes. Was it Meerkat was another one back in the day?
Oh, yeah, Meerkat. Yeah.
Way back. Those were some of the first ones, right?
Yeah, Periscope, Meerkat, yeah.
Periscope. And, it was Periscope, too, that really started to look at, live streaming and what the possibilities are as a creator or as a business or as an enthusiast or someone who's passionate about anything. It's just a great way to be able to share your passion. It's a great way to reach your audience and ultimately to engage with your audience in real time. And that's where that connection and that authenticity and the relationship building starts.
Yeah, there's a guy in China, because in China it tends to be we still see live streaming here in Europe as being B2B.
Right.
But in China, they've moved to, it's a kind of a bit like a TV channel, a QVC type sales channel, but on live streaming, and a lot more on Amazon. And there's a guy in what's his name, Lipstick somebody or other, but he just sells small items like Apple Pods and lipsticks,
right.
And stuff like that. And he's turning over like $2 billion.
Absolutely. So selling online or e-commerce through live stream is one of the big trends for 2022. And it doesn't have to be super fancy. All it really means is that you're selling your products, whatever they might be, while you're live streaming, right? Through live streaming. And then there's technology and creative ways to make it easier for people to purchase right there on the spot, of course. But it's just that connection. It's that opportunity to engage directly with your audience and share a little bit about not just your products, because that's easy. They can search your website, but your passion about your products and why you like them and what's great about them. And, that's really opens the door to being able to sell through live streaming.
And I think it's the authenticity, isn't it? Because people can actually see real people having conversations and they can kind of get a feel for the personality. I know you can get that in the written word, but there's nothing like video for doing that.
Sure. And, and that's where credibility comes in, right? Where they can, especially through the interaction and engaging over time. The great thing about live streaming is almost always it's saved, right? So people, for example, this stream, if you're watching the replay, welcome.
Yeah.
And so, there's so many different things that you can do with that content. And, people get to know, like, and trust you. And the more that they hear your voice and get to see you, it helps just to build that connection for sure.
So this is about how to get started. So
yeah,
how'd you get started, Sean?
Well, the way I got started and what I recommend is to keep it as simple as possible. Regardless if you have a big budget or not for cameras and microphones and lights and all those great things we can talk about, starting simple and experimenting. And you can do that just with a webcam or an iPhone. There's some applications, one of them that was great for me is called Switcher. And that goes along the lines with things like Restream, or you can use it with Restream. And what's unique about Switcher is you can use it right from your iPhone or your iPad. And so that makes it really easy to sort of up your production game and being able to stream to multiple destinations, but again, just with a phone or just with a webcam on
Because
Restream.
you
So
did your passion project during COVID was like a martial arts event for children. You used this during that. So tell us about that.
yeah, so way back in the day, my first passion was martial arts, and I used to actually own a martial arts academy back in Vancouver,
Right.
and two-time North American martial arts champion. And it was just a big part of my life. And I wanted to be able to share that during COVID, especially with people being at home and not having that connection or not going to school. And so I was trying to find a way that I could all do it myself, because we were going to go into a studio and try to film it. But here in Canada, that wasn't an option. The businesses, you weren't even allowed to go in. So that's when I discovered this app called Switcher. And what it allowed me to do was to hook up 3 iPhones and an iPad. So I could have 3 different shots. And she didn't know she was going to be doing this, but my partner Mary, who ended up being on the iPad Switcher, we're going to have but it just goes to show you that without very much experience at all, she was able to use the iPad, and you can pan and tilt the cameras. They sit on Osmo gimbals. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can live switch. So we took it up a notch pretty quick in that sense. I mean, you could have just done one camera, but it just goes to show you that consumer level equipment can give you professional level results.
Mm. And in terms of, I mean, I actually have one of these mics, but I'm actually starting not to use it because the iMac I've got a new iMac,
right?
And the camera and the in the old days when Apple made this stuff, they brought in the camera and the phone, and it kind of was like an add-on. Of course, with the new ones, because they know that people are working from home, it's actually all built in, and it's actually an Apple mic and an Apple camera, and it's got machine learning and stuff like that. And so you've got adequate. It might not be professional, but adequate mic and camera, even within the standard iMac that you would go and buy from a retail shop.
And you do. And the one thing that's interesting is that unless you're really going to tweak your settings, is that it's got the built-in noise cancellation, right? And so when you're using a mic like I am, I'm using an actual boom mic, an NTG5 Rode studio mic. But what comes with that is a whole bunch of other settings and considerations and all of that. And at the end of the day, for the difference in sound that isn't too significant, you can just use, especially a brand new iPhone. Just going back, for those of you with the martial arts or you have kids or families, it's called Breakthrough Kids and Breakthrough with a U. And if you want to check out how we did the live streaming, it's always saved as well. So you can go back and rewatch it. But we have this conversation, Tim, in Spaces, in Twitter Spaces all the time. And a shout out to introduced us, a good friend, Keith Keller.
Yeah, and, Keith introduced us. Yeah, thanks.
He did. Yeah, thanks to Keith. And so, and he's all about studying the audio efficiency through Twitter Spaces. And what happens is that at the end of the day, you can just use your phone close to your mouth, and have a quiet room is going to be more important than having a fancy, I've got a Rodecaster by Rode, and it's a mixer, and it gives you multi-channel, it gives you, sound effects and all those kind of fun things as well. The audience gets excited when I talk, obviously.
I'm sure they do.
But you don't really need that, and just having the basics, starting is a quiet room, and make sure the mic is close to your mouth. If that's your phone or whatever sort of basic, maybe a USB mic that you have that's connected, or whatever it is just to start simple. You can literally just start with your built-in webcam and microphone or phone for sure.
And what what else do people should be looking at if they want to start off on this?
Yeah, so from a sort of technical point of view on that kind of path, a phone or a webcam, looking at a basic microphone could help. If you have the time to do it, again, I would do that as step 2. But one thing I would suggest starting with is some basic lighting. Right. And so what happens a lot of time, a couple mistakes to avoid, is we think, oh, we got a pretty view behind us. Let's put the window behind us. So that's almost right off the bat, always a bad idea, because now you're dealing with backlighting. So whether you buy, a cheap light off Amazon, $15, $20 or something like that, just getting a little bit of light on your face makes a huge difference. So right off the bat, again, a simple light versus getting all fancy is really all you need to start on.
Yes. So I've got a window in front of me.
So you've got a face.
But I did an interview recently about Feng Shui, and I was told, oh, you shouldn't have a door behind you. It's really bad Feng Shui. So,
and Feng Shui, apparently.
Yeah. So...
And a fun fact is I actually, with Breakthrough Kids, did have a huge window behind me because I was going for an effect with this brick wall. So I had these huge floodlights filling the room with light in order to light me
Right.
up enough. But I literally had 4 big floodlights having to counteract the light from the outside.
Mm.
So I don't suggest it. It takes a lot of time to set up as well. Put the window that way. When the meeting's over, if you want to have the nice, wherever you want to be, that's fine. But for your meetings or your live streams, have the light on you. And same for taking a picture. If
So
you
in
see the
terms of
sky,
in terms of lighting, what do you suggest? I mean, all I do is I've just got the light in this room, and of course I get a bit of a shine off the top of my head, but I just kind of live with it.
yeah, from where I'm looking, it looks great to me. It all depends on the room itself. If you're lucky enough that the light's in the right place, a lot of time that's all it is. So it's maybe just positioning yourself or your desk in the room so that the light is on your face. That's all. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. One of the most important things I can't stress, because I do love the tech part of this, is that it's more about the context of what you're sharing, how you're sharing it, than the quality of it. They're not going to keep coming back because your lighting was perfect. They're going to keep coming back because your message resonated with them.
Yes.
So when we talk about how to get started with live streaming, it's just to start sharing what you're most passionate about and not worrying about every single detail, and just really from day one be willing to make some mistakes while you're live.
Yes, like setting it up at the wrong time and things like that.
Yeah, like scheduling is good with your guest. Always make
Yeah,
sure your
yeah, yeah.
guests
It's
on the right
just so for
schedule.
people know, I actually I set this at the wrong. I was supposed to be 5 o'clock my time, and I ended up setting up at 4 o'clock my time. Luckily, Sean is flexible to meet that that mistake. But the thing is, the point I'm making is that you're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And the thing is to make them and laugh about it.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show that you're human and that you're real, right? Again, we're farther away from that pre-scripted, movie production, news sort of kind of speaking, and more just natural language is what, just talking like you're talking to someone in the same room as you. Like we're chatting here now, back and forth. It just sounds so much more genuine. We're getting all these marketing and all these scripted speeches coming at us. It's just noise, right? So even if you miss words or, feel like you've made it, you're not quite sure what to say next, that's fine. Have some fun with it, and it's a great way to build rapport with your audience as well, even showing that human side of yourself.
And yeah, and I mean, I love the Restream platform because the fact that you do get this interaction from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that you can. I mean, I knew that you meant good work, gentlemen, not goo work, gentlemen. But it's in fact, I smiled about it. I actually thought I thought it was funnier than if you'd probably written it correctly. But that's the whole
Absolutely.
point. Make mistakes, experiment.
Absolutely. And there is that experience that you have just before you go live, or I certainly do sometimes. And with practice, I don't know, Tim, do you ever get a little bit of energy before you go live, or have you done it so many times
Yeah, a little
now?
bit of energy. Yeah.
A little bit of
I mean,
energy.
I've done over 200 of these, and I still get butterflies in my stomach. But I think that's a great thing.
It is. And and that's the important opportunity, the learning part right there, right? Is that we're going outside of our comfort zone. So the first step of live streaming is to know that we all go through that. Doesn't matter, Tim's 200th or 2000th or second, right? So it's okay to feel that, that famous book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, right? And that's exactly with live streaming, is that it's okay to have some butterflies or some energy, but just hit go and enjoy the show.
I think it's such a wonderful medium of reaching out and contacting people. I was talking to you earlier on that I do this thing called the digital download on Friday,
Right, right.
which is at 2 o'clock UK time. So it's probably a bit early in the morning for you, but we can sometimes have 9 of us on there.
Really?
And the way that came about was we were having an internal meeting during COVID, and I run a remote virtual company, so I've got people all over the world, and they all dialed in, to use that old phrase, and we were like having a laugh, and we were sharing stories and stuff, and someone said we should do this like live streaming, and we went, yeah, that's a good idea. So it was actually the idea came from an internal meeting, so we have a bit of banter and a bit of laugh, but
Yeah.
and things can go wrong.
Yeah. And that's too, is that then you get into hosting like we're doing here, Tim, is where I'm your guest, right? And so,
Yeah.
having guests, things can happen, right? And practicing moderating, getting used to things coming up, or maybe your guest goes in a direction and you need to practice bringing them back on track and having a bit of a format. But that can all come over time, So another tip is definitely set a time, whether it's, 20 minutes or an hour or 10 minutes or whatever it is, set a bit of a plan in advance. A little bit of planning goes a long way. So if it's going to be just a quick Instagram live, here's how long I'm going to do it. Here's when I'm going to do it. Here's what I'm going to talk about, and just jot those things down. And here's my objective with it. And then afterwards, you can just take a look at what you wrote down and say, oh, what went well and what can I improve for next time? And if we just do that a little bit each time, you'll just simply get better and better. And it gets more fun and more fun every time.
So just so everybody knows, I always meet all the guests I have on as a preparation course. So Sean and I had a talk beforehand, and I do that for two reasons. One, when I get on, I kind of know Sean, otherwise it can feel a little bit cold. It feels a little bit warmer. But we also have a chat in terms of what the structure is. So these are all my notes from the conversation I have with Sean. So if I'm ever in a situation, so I actually have a structure. So some people think it's unscripted. Well, sometimes it is, but actually there's a structure here that I actually work to.
Great.
And so I totally agree with you, Sean, in terms of you need to know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and the structure that you're going to have. And as Jennifer says, Jennifer's one of the people that I've interviewed, and so Jennifer's one of your Twitter Spaces friends.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, there she is. Welcome. That's fantastic. Hey, Jennifer, glad you could make it. And speaking of Twitter Spaces, that's one too thing is that, getting ready for camera, and having the lighting or the, looking and feeling confident is that, social audio is also just growing massively right now. And, it got started with Clubhouse, and now we see Twitter Spaces, and we see LinkedIn audio now is getting rolled out to some beta users and social
one of my
audio
guys is a beta user of it. So he did his first one.
And it was a good experience. I thought that they're definitely on the right track. Social audio just means that it's just audio. So instead of having this video part, it's similar to this, except it's just audio.
So
in audio, Tim, so far, do you think it's got potential?
Yeah, I mean, we as a business, we were on Clubhouse for about 3 months, but actually decided to move everything and all our efforts into the LinkedIn Live environment. But we haven't actually got involved more into the social audio stuff. I've been watching what people like Jennifer and you and Keith Keller and that are doing from a Twitter Spaces perspective. It's interesting just to sit back and actually watch, because I understand the power of it.
Yeah, and I would say that as some first steps is that when you go to things that's where the opportunity for anyone to speak too, right? Is that it's easy to join in and become part of the conversation, is to go ahead and maybe you don't have to start your own show right away or your own social audio right away, but you can jump into others and practice by adding your voice and adding some value to the conversation. And so that's a really good tip, is a great way to start building your confidence, is find spaces, Twitter Spaces or social audio that resonates with you and people that, you like their energy or they're talking about things you're passionate about, and put your hand up or a request to talk. And you'll be surprised that there's a lot of really neat, engaging, helpful people there. And on top of that, if you are struggling, reaching out for help, there's such a warm community. I can't tell you how much that's helped me as well in my journey, just my community that I have.
And I think it was actually going to be my next question about community, because I think it's so critical that the community, which is the people that you start working with and interacting with, that they become contacts. They then build out to be a network, and ultimately they can be friends. People I've met on Twitter, I've met all over the world.
Right.
And I think some people make the mistake of thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to monetize this. And that's always a mistake. It's always about community first.
Absolutely. And that, could be said about the startup world these days, is that, product sales driven people in organizations are always like, okay, how quick to ROI, how quick to revenue, how quick to market, and all these kind of great terms. But really, it's more turning that upside down these days, is building the community first And understanding what your community wants or needs and being part of that is so much more valuable than how fast you get your product to market. And, so I would flip that strategy on its head and build community first, find out who your community is, connect with them. Don't think about selling anything. That should be the last thing on your mind.
Yes.
And use that as a learning opportunity to find out how you can provide value to people and learn from each other.
Here we go, Sean. Sean is an amazing social audio host and thought leader in Twitter Spaces. Fantastic. No, I don't know who that is because it's actually come through your paired link because you've paired your.
Oh, we got it in the chat here.
Yeah. So just so people know, with Restream, one of the things that you can do is you can pair profiles. So Sean is paired with me. So what's happened is that this is transmitting through my LinkedIn profile and my Twitter and my YouTube channel, but Sean has paired his, so it's also going through Sean's LinkedIn profile and your Twitter as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I believe so.
Yeah. Yep. So and the reason why I'm mentioning this is that the more people then you have on your show, the bigger the reach that you have.
And that would be a great feature to learn on Restream.
That's so and one of the things you can do, a lot of people don't know, is that now what happened is LinkedIn has taken the LinkedIn events and LinkedIn Live, and they've merged the code together. So you automatically set up a LinkedIn event whenever you do run a Restream like this. You then connect Sean as a speaker to it, and Sean can invite, or each speaker can invite 1,000 guests per week.
I mean, wow, that's nice, and for people that have
mind-blowingly amazing what you can do in terms of reach and connection and stuff like that. And I'm just mentioning that because this is a basic Restream show, and I just wanted to share that with the audience.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Restream. I think it's a great platform, and it's so exciting to be able to share this out everywhere and go out back after and see all the cool comments and whatnot as well.
So Sean, anything else? As we're just kind of at time, but anything else in terms of the future or any further advice that you've got?
Just follow your passion. That's the main thing with social media, and to cut through the noise is that it's going to be something you're going to be talking a lot about, right? And so you find something that's really passionate about. Don't worry how big your audience is. It would be way better to connect with just a couple people that are watching than thousands that are just doing it and aren't interested or engaging, right? So don't worry about those vanity metrics. Just make those genuine connections, be yourself, and be ready to make some mistakes and have some fun.
And build it and use it as a way of building community.
And use it as
relationships and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Sean, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Tim.
And thank you for pairing your. We've got some really nice comments.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks. That's what great community is for. Hey,
yeah. And thank you, Jennifer, if you're still tuned in.
Thanks, everyone.
Sabjet, I don't know if I've pronounced your name right, for your comments, and the two LinkedIn users that commented as well. But thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you so much, Tim. We'll look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Great to see you.